Just doing a limited strike.
Oh, just a limited strike. Oh, well, I'm sorry.
That was Bernie Sanders during his interview with Face the Nation over the weekend. He was talking about Trump's strategy, or lack thereof, when it comes to Iran. And as we all know, tensions have escalated between the Trump administration and Iran. In fact, Trump has just implemented additional sanctions against Iran, which I will detail for you in just a minute. But what really stood out to me about this interview was the fact that Bernie Sanders was speaking specifically about foreign policy, something that he's not necessarily known for. He's very strong when it comes to economic and domestic policy, but the way he would handle Iran is spot on, and I want you to hear from him. Take a look.
I want to ask you about Iran.
Good.
Was President Trump's decision this week to call off that strike the right one?
See, it's like somebody setting a fire to a basket full of paper and then putting it out. He helped create the crisis, and then he stopped the attacks. The idea that we're looking at a president of the United States who, number one, thinks that a war with Iran is something that might be good for this country.
He was just doing a limited strike.
Oh, just a limited strike. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I just didn't know that it's okay to simply attack another country with bombs, just a limited strike. That's an act of warfare.
God damn, that's strong.
I love his no-nonsense approach, and I feel like he's become more aggressive in that approach this time around. I don't know if that's gonna rub some people the wrong way. I know that the optics do matter, especially when he's speaking to a woman, but I think he handled that perfectly, right?
No, look, I criticized myself for that issue last week. I don't think that's the case here at all.
Right.
I think it's patronizing to female reporters if you don't treat them as aggressively as male reporters.
Totally agree, 100%.
Okay, so in this case, look, I actually think that it's great that Trump called off the strikes. I said that last week, but is Bernie right that he set the fire in the first place? Of course, he shouldn't have ripped up the peace deal we had with them. They didn't have access to uranium that could make weapons. It was already solved. There was nothing to solve. But he's such an egomaniac and he hates Obama so much that he was like, Obama made the deal, I'm ripping it up. I'm gonna do a better one. And so now Iran is saying, okay, look, Europe, you ripped up the deal, you stopped doing it. We kept following it. Then you put sanctions on us, and now you're putting extra sanctions on us. So if you want us to come back and give you more in the deal, well, you got to give us more in the deal. That's how deals work, right? But Trump doesn't understand. He's like, no, me want more, me want more. And then so he was threatening these strikes, and she steps in and she does what unfortunately a lot of establishment media does all the time. Hey, we're just doing limited strikes here, right? What was the need for that interjection, right? That is her saying it's not a big deal. And him coming out aggressively and saying, no, bombing another country is a huge deal and an act of war. It's about damn time that somebody challenged these establishment reporters on their constant cheerleading for warfare.
Now, I'm sure in Brennan's mind, the way she interjected was meant to challenge Bernie, but in reality, what she did there was regurgitate talking points from the Trump administration. What is a limited airstrike? That is an act of warfare, as Bernie Sanders perfectly laid out in that clip. It is an act of warfare. Do you think that that's gonna de-escalate the situation? No, it's gonna push us further in the direction of war. And I'm glad that he held back and he didn't implement those airstrikes. I'm sure something that very much frustrated John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, who are actually angry right now that Trump is implementing more sanctions as opposed to pursuing military action.
I want to say one more thing about Margaret Brennan. Look, I don't think that she's, some part of cabal where she loves having wars. No, I don't think that. But is she part of the same groupthink that almost all the establishment media is? Yes. And I'll prove that to you with this framing. She thinks, no, when we're going to do strikes, and it's more of a neoconservative thing than it is a Trump thing. So, and a lot of the media is more opposed to Trump than they are to the neoconservatives. They let the neoconservatives walk us right into Iraq. And right now, a lot of the media is out there going, well, I mean, Trump wasn't tough. Trump waffled on this, right? But look, so the framing is, she says, well, they were limited strikes. Now, if Iran dropped a bomb in the middle of America, would Margaret Brennan or anyone in the establishment media just say, hey, that was just a limited strike? Oh, they bombed a nuclear facility in the middle of Texas. And they killed 150 people. Not a big deal, it's just a limited strike. Could you imagine her interrupting a politician in the middle of them saying Iran attacked us in Texas, and they're going, hey, it was a limited strike?
I can't imagine that.
Of course you can't imagine it. That's the pro-war groupthink where we're allowed to bomb other countries and we think they're never gonna retaliate and that it's not gonna lead to endless wars. Well, it does, and it has over and over again.
So let's hear a little more from Sanders. In this next clip, he specifically addresses how important Congress's role is in making these decisions.
Let's remember what we learned in civics, when we were kids. It is the United States Congress under our Constitution that has war-making authority, not the President of the United States. If he attacks Iran, in my view, that would be unconstitutional.
So if you are commander-in-chief, you will ask Congress for permission before you engage in any kind of military action?
Look, there are some times of emergency situations. Okay, that I understand.
Defensive actions.
Yeah, if you're attacked immediately, you have to respond. Nobody believes that we are in that type of emergency situation with Iran right now. So I'm going to do everything we can to stop that war. And what the function of a president should be is to say to Saudi Arabia, which, by the way, is a horrific dictatorship, a brutal dictatorship that kills dissidents, that treats women as third-class citizens. Our job is to say to Saudi Arabia, we're not following your lead. You're going to have to sit down with Iran. We will play a role. Work it out.
Okay, so first, real quick on Margaret Brennan, that's a perfectly legit question. It's a good question. I'd ask the same thing. Wait, when you're president, how are you going to handle this situation? And Bernie makes a good distinction. Well, is it truly defensive and you have to act immediately? Or is it like this, where you have a peace deal, you tear up a peace deal, then you provoke them, and then you choose to attack them by going on the offense? In that case, that you're starting a war, and you should ask Congress, right? So his distinction is right. But what I loved more was what he said about Saudi Arabia, and he kept on talking in that interview, and he said, I just don't want to be part of the Saudi war efforts. That's not the point of the United States of America.
Yeah,
exactly right.
In fact, we have one more clip, and I think he gets into it here. So let's take a look.
I would say to Iran, I would say to Saudi Arabia, I would say to Israel, I would say to the other countries in that region, you know what? You have been at war in one way or another for decade after decade after decade. And by the way, your wars have not only impacted your own people, they have impacted the United States to the tune of trillions of dollars and 5,000 lost lives. We will play a role in bringing you together. And if you need economic aid, we will provide the economic aid. We will provide the resources, but we're not simply going to give more and more weaponry to Saudi Arabia, to Israel. We're going to try to bring people together for what I admit, Margaret, I admit it, will not be easy.
So he wants to approach it from a more diplomatic standpoint, stop selling weapons, and that is, I think, a popular position, especially given the public's response to this escalation toward Iran. Now, Trump, to give him a little bit of credit, seems to really want a deal. So remember, the Iran nuclear deal was specifically meant to stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons. But Trump wants to negotiate a deal with Iran that would include other provisions, maybe stop with some of the proxy wars, stop with the missiles that are being fired at other countries. I get that, right? But the way he's trying to do it, I think, could easily, we can find ourselves in war because it's just stoking tension. So what he's doing right now is he's implementing more sanctions, as I mentioned. He's trying to squeeze Iran economically. There were already sanctions in place, but this latest round of sanctions targets specific people, including the Ayatollah, the foreign minister in Iran, and other members of the Iranian National Guard, right? So all of those people will no longer be allowed to use international banking. Their assets will be frozen, and he's hoping that this will bring them to the table and lead to a better negotiation. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but what I do know is with Bolton and Pompeo in his ear, pushing him in the direction of war, it is very conceivable that we'll head in that direction.
Yeah, I don't think these new sanctions help at all. The new sanctions are going after freezing the accounts of some of the top leadership in Iran, which is only going to agitate them. And as the Iranians are saying, you're not giving us anything in return. All you do is heap on extra punishment, extra sanctions, and you keep provoking us. To what end? So what do you want that we didn't already give you? We gave you all of our uranium. So what, you haven't even made clear what you want, and then let alone what you're gonna give us in return. See, that's how deals are normally done. So this is another way I think of Bolton and Pompeo tricking the idiot into a war. Now, MSNBC drives me crazy. So they have some good hosts like Chris Hayes who speak out against the war. I think Rachel did on 1 or 2 occasions. But they had a panel today talking about, oh, is Tucker Carlson gonna be the new Secretary of Defense? I can't believe Trump's listening to Tucker Carlson telling him not to go to war with Iran. Take yes for an answer. Tucker is saying don't go to war with Iran and he's having influence with Trump. What do you want him to do? Stop listening to that guy and start listening to Bolton? So they're sometimes the way they warmonger is maddening.
Yeah, well, for them, I mean, it's just, I get it, right? Trump is a hideous, terrible person. But sometimes the hate for Trump blinds them from sound commentary. So they're so obsessed with attacking Trump or attacking Tucker Carlson that they won't give credit where credit is due. Do not goad the Trump administration into war. You don't want war. So again, credit where credit is due. Don't try to make him out to be like a weak person on national security. What are you're trying to push him toward invading Iran?
It makes no sense. Now, finally, that leads to foreign policy, which has almost not been discussed at all in the presidential campaign on the Democratic side. So we have finally begun to discuss it. And so right now, there's a lot of folks I'd love to find out more about their foreign policy. I know the history of it, but what is their current stance, right? And some I don't even know the history of it. I don't know Andrew Yang's foreign policy almost at all. Next time we interview him, I'll certainly ask a lot more about that. And Elizabeth Warren, we need more clarity. But Bill de Blasio was just the mayor of New York, a great progressive in a lot of ways, but I don't know enough about his foreign policy. Now, the people who we do know about, Mike Gravel obviously never wants to go into these wars. Tulsi Gabbard clearly against wars, and definitely and just introduced legislation against this war in particular. And now you see Bernie, crystal clear. He's not gonna get into stupid, senseless wars in the Middle East. And he says, look, if people wanna get our weapons, whether it's Saudi Arabia or Israel, who are our allies, we're perfectly happy to make economic deals, but they have got to come to the table. If they don't come to the table, why are we encouraging endless wars? Well, so far,